Good morning. So, I guess there's a saying, don't let the perfect get in the way of the good. And I want to start by saying this budget is neither perfect nor good for the state of Connecticut. It is filled with, it rises to the level of deception and promotion, only second to P.T. Barnum. This budget eviscerates all of our fiscal guardrails. They are destroying the volatility cap, making it more insecure now for us to put any money away into our unfunded obligations. It is creating a gimmick in the first year to get around the spending cap. And then finally, we are devoting the surplus and the revenue cap permanently to an off-budget early childhood account. So while many people may like this budget for what it does for their individual constituencies, in the long run, it's setting the state of Connecticut up for failure and for tax increases. It is relying on $2 billion of additional revenue. And unfortunately, a lot of that revenue is going to turn into one-time revenue. So these programs are unsustainable. They are creating an account to put into the treasurer's office. I'm not sure that amount, it's upward in the billions, because they are establishing a budget that is going to be in violation of federal law. They are continuing to fund illegal immigrant health care, and they're relying on a hospital tax to the tune of over $350 million now. That's in total, it is jeopardizing $1 billion of federal funding. So it's irresponsible. These are decisions that should have been corrected this year. We shouldn't be doing it and then waiting to see what happens to the federal government. There is no question we are going to be back in here in the fall, filling the holes that are created in this budget today. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
What do you like in the budget?
Well, I mean, I could say, of course, we point to ECS funding and special ed funding, and there are things that we like. What I don't like is there a complete lack of prioritization of programs. We are overexpended because the lack of doing a budget adjustment last year. We saw last year's budget go into deficit by $500 million. They didn't change any of those policies. So it is a fait accompli that this budget is going to slip into deficit very quickly. And it's frustrating. We know there are areas that need to be addressed, in particular Medicaid, and it's not being done.
So just to be clear, this will be a party line vote when this comes before.
We haven't even caucused it yet, but I certainly, as the leader of my House Republican caucus, will encourage every Republican to vote no on this. And I would hope fiscal moderates in the Democrat caucus, if they exist, would vote no. I am shocked that the governor would agree to this budget. When he issued his state of emergency last month, in order to fill the deficit, he crowed about the fact that it was not readjusting the spending cap. The very policy that he opposed a month ago, he is now allowing in this budget by allowing $150 million rebasing of the spending cap in year 2. It is a complete 180 on his positions, and it's just very disappointing that he didn't hold the line on anything when it came to the fiscal guardrails.
On Medicaid, obviously you object to the undocumented immigrant Husky program. Aside from that, it's been short. Do you feel like they did enough to shore it up you're worried about shortfalls again in the future? Yeah, I mean, we haven't granularly looked at the rate increases that they've done, but at the same time they made those increases, which we would support in theory, they didn't negotiate a hospital tax, and they're relying on $375 million more from hospitals. So it's great you're doing Medicaid increases, but you're putting the hospital financial structure in jeopardy if you don't get a deal. And now at the 11th hour, they're going to try to apply for a federal waiver that they should have applied for back in August of last year. We knew this deal was expiring. The inaction that we have seen in this past year has put the state of Connecticut into crisis.
What is your biggest concern about the declaration and going above the spending cap to fill the Medicaid hole? Is that your biggest concern?
Well, I'm concerned now that the governor, did that declaration and structured it in a way that protected the spending cap. He argued that it was sacrosanct. Well, guess what? Surprise, it's not. Because he's allowing the very activity that he fought against to happen in this budget. So in year one, they're going to make an extra payment into TERS, teacher retirement, to the tune of $150 million. And then they're just going to slide it into year two and rebase the spending cap. So it's the exact gimmick that Democrats wanted to do with Medicaid last month that they're doing now with the pension fund. So the governor needs to reconcile his philosophical positions, because to me, I feel like he's abandoned all of them. Even the volatility cap, he wanted to adjust it to the tune of $300 million. We had runs to show how devastating a $300 million adjustment could be. They're now adjusting it over $600 million. So it doesn't even, looking at actuary numbers done by Pew and submitted through OFA, it doesn't even make sense that they're going that high. So this is just an easy short-term out that these guys took to spike the football today, and it is going to put Connecticut in a very dangerous path.
Is that the $4 billion and the $4.7 billion increase?
So they're increasing that volatility cap, and they're taking that money and spending it. That's going to be a permanent change going forward. And if you just look at the projections of what is going into our volatility cap, if you have one small recession, which we are banking on a real good time, they're acting as if we are never going to see a recession for the rest of our lives. And that's what's irresponsible, because if we have one hiccup in our estimates and finals, we are going to slip very quickly into deficit. But the takeaway story is they have abandoned all the savings that we achieved through our pension funds. And so when the governor goes in to negotiate CBAC and give these state employees 5% raises like he's been doing for the last 6 years, he better start making some tough decisions, because the pension money is not going to be there to sustain these outrageous increases. And we are not going to stand for more tax increases on the state of Connecticut to pay for this irresponsible budget.
So speaking of taxes, I know you had some doubts about the proposed child tax credit. Is the way they did it instead through the EITC any better in your view?
No, the part about it is that this budget doesn't recognize the middle class. So we continue to see the wealthy being taken care of with no tax increases, and the poor being taken care of with social programs. There is nothing in this budget for the middle class. So to talk about a child tax credit, every family in the state of Connecticut struggles. You know, my children are in college now, but it's certainly raising them and going through child care. We all talked about this weekend how important it is. These programs are not going to help the middle class of Connecticut, and that's unfortunate. But that program, again, is unsustainable. It's over $65 million in this budget. When the EIT was first passed in the state of Connecticut, it had a price tag of $105 million. And it was a significant change in policy. And we went along with it. To think now that this small program, which is $200 to people, is going to cost $65 million just speaks to the growth of poverty in the state of Connecticut. And it's getting a little bit frightening to see when you have 42% of our children being born into Medicaid. This is a budget that is sustaining poverty for Connecticut. It's not exciting for me. And frankly, it makes me concerned, because this spending is unsustainable.
So when the speaker says it's under the cap in year one and year two, do you say that that's smoke and mirrors, or what do you say to that?
Well, it's under the cap in year one, certainly. In year two, they created more cap room. You know, and also they created, if you recall, in this budget, it's transferring $250 million of accounts into next year. So while it's under the cap, they have $450 million of gimmicks to increase spending in the budget. So it's not under the cap as we designed it. It's under the cap as Democrats designed it, and that is, let's figure out all these gimmicks to get around.
And regarding other items in the budget, the Speaker acknowledged SB 7 is in there. There is some artificial intelligence language that Ritter indicated would not be as far-reaching as some of us read it this morning. That it may
SB 2.
Yeah, okay. So,
yeah, I mean, again, I don't know what the governor has stood on. He said he was going to veto SB 2. We didn't take it up. Well, guess what? SB 2 is in the budget. I don't think our side of the aisle objected to it as much as the governor did, but we respected the governor to say maybe we shouldn't call it. The governor thinks it's really bad for the state of Connecticut, and the governor now has allowed it to go into the budget.
Are there other things that you've spotted in that are other bills or folded in that you wish to highlight?
Well, we chatted, and I think Dave could take this question about
We've only done. I only have gotten through halfway, so because it was pretty early this morning. But the off-site fabrications in the bill, which is a big labor give, where they have to pay prevailing wage for any work done off-site, and the lactation bill, which was a source of major contention in the legislature, is also fully contained in the bill. The real estate wholesalers that we passed the other day is in here. It hasn't passed the Senate yet. Really don't know why it's in the budget. You probably know of like 2 or 3 things that I haven't gotten to yet. So, and AI for the most part is in there.
Yeah, so I mean that's sort of the gist of it. We were still going through it, but most of the stuff that we're seeing are bills that were either passed in one chamber or went through the committee process and hasn't been called yet.
Vinny, the governor's been pretty clear about vetoing the striking strike, something that he doesn't agree with, and now the unions are not letting that go. What does that say to you?
I'm concerned the governor, that's the last thing that he's holding out on. I mean, he really has folded and collapsed on everything else. So, I mean, at this point, I think there are so many problems in this budget. The striking working bill, it pales in comparison to the troubles that are in this document. We are raising taxes on corporations. You know, not only did it extend the corporate surcharge, which we understand, it is imposing a unitary tax and eliminating that cap, which is very dangerous for a lot of these larger companies like Home Depot that operate in the state of Connecticut. So when we see striking workers' bills and we see minimum wage going up and we see changes to paid sick leave and we have forced retirement programs, it's pretty daunting for any business to run in the state of Connecticut. But now we are putting a huge burden on large corporations by imposing this unitary tax. And finally, we believe there's also a 5-cent tax on everyone's cell phone bill as well that's in the budget. So to claim this is a no-tax budget is disingenuous.
Is that for firefighters?
It's for that fund and more. I mean, we thought that fund needed about a penny of tax in order to be sustained. They're taking 5 cents. So it's, again, over-taxation to create these war chests to who knows what they're going to be used for down the road.
So just to be clear, the unitary tax is in there the way the governor originally proposed
That's
it?
correct.
Okay.
You know, in his comment that he spoke to companies, there are a lot of companies that have come forward to say, you didn't speak to me, and they are very concerned about that tax. It was why we capped it at $2 million when it was originally imposed. Maryland had done it, and they, I'm not sure, they might still have it in place, but they did see an exodus of a lot of corporate headquarters because of that tax, and that's the concern that I've always had with that tax. The state of Connecticut is not setting itself up for good economic growth, for good high-paying jobs. We used to be the land of corporate headquarters. You know, next to Delaware, people would open up their companies here, and we've seen mass exodus. You know, Lego being, I think, was the latest one. General Electric was one of the first that got us all concerned. But it seems that it doesn't bother the Democrats anymore, that we're seeing these large corporate headquarters leaving our state. And that's a policy that speaks right to that issue.